The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career. The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career. The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career. The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career. The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career.
Good morning.
The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site classes, dedicated faculty, diverse student experiences, and highly recognized programs. Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Apply today and fast-track your career. The future is ever-changing. Communities, jobs, and economies are continually being transformed. This is why we need incredible minds to connect problems with innovative solutions, to disrupt and create new industries, to enable businesses to think sustainably, to shape evidence-based leaders and the next generation of visionaries. SALCC helps you to shape your career. Your passion is calling. Your future is standing by. Tap into your potential. Virtual and on-site.
When I saw everybody separated, I thought we were back in COVID. And then I saw the doc in the back.
Hello.
I said, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Please stand with me as I welcome Miss Ria Gordon, who will be doing a beautiful rendition of our national anthem. Thank you very much for that beautiful rendition. Please take your seats. All right. Good morning once again, everyone, to our physical audience and our youth at home watching us. I am Davian Alexander, Deputy CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Lucia, and with me I have
Naim Filbert, also Deputy CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Lucia.
and we are your MCs for today. All right.
It is with pleasure that we welcome the Honorable Michael Shasney, Leader of the Opposition, to be here with us today for our Youth and Democracy Forum, where we the youth get the opportunity to ask him the questions, the burning questions that have been plaguing our minds. Yes, you.
All right. Please put your hands together as I welcome the brains behind this operation, Ms. Jada Volson and Mr. Dequan Charles. Please put your hands together for them.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Seeing this room filled with so many young people, future leaders, and partners genuinely means more than I can express. Today's forum is not just an event, it's something I've carried as a personal passion project for a very long time. I envisioned a space where young people can sit face to face with decision makers, ask real questions, express very real concerns, and be taken seriously. Planning this forum has taken weeks of coordination, late nights, edits, adjustments, many conversations, some expected and some not so expected. But every moment was worth it to stand here today. The fact that so many of you showed up ready to engage is the greatest confirmation that this work matters to you. I'm grateful to every single person in this room, whether you supported with ideas, guidance, resources, encouragement, or simply by being here today. Each of you contributed to making this vision a reality, and I do not take that for granted.
Good morning, everyone. Today represents something powerful. You step in confidently into national discussions that shape our future. Today, this forum was created because young people deserve the opportunity and a seat at the table, not just as observers, but as active contributors. Jada's vision for this event was clear from the very beginning: to create a respectful, informed environment where young people can engage directly with political representatives, challenge ideas, share solutions, and deepen their understanding on the political system. Today isn't about partisanship, it's about participation. It's about learning, questioning, listening, and speaking in a place where your voice matters.
I also would like to acknowledge the incredible support from the Citizens of Peace and Prosperity, the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Authority, and the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, and the peers who assisted us behind the scenes. This forum exists because people believed in youth leadership and believed in the value of creating this platform.
So as we begin, we encourage everyone to be engaged, to be respectful, and to be courageous in your questions. Your voice genuinely matters here today.
And before we officially start off, I would like to express a special thanks to Honorable Alan Shasney for taking the time to come here today. We really appreciate your interest in our event. Thank you, and we officially open the Youth and Democracy Forum 2025.
Today's National Youth Forum was designed to create a space where young people can speak openly, honestly, and confidently about the issues affecting us. Before we begin, we want to walk you through the purpose of this forum and what we hope you will take away from it. This event exists to bridge gaps between young citizens and national leaders, between concerns and solutions, and between dialogue and action. We want every voice in this room to feel valued and respected.
Our format today is simple but intentional. We'll start with brief remarks from our special guest, followed by a moderated exchange between attendees and our political representatives. This is a youth-centered space, so your questions, comments, and perspectives are at the heart of today's discussion. Our role as moderators is to guide the conversation, keep it balanced, and ensure that everyone has an opportunity to participate.
We want to set a few expectations so the discussion remains productive. Please keep your questions concise and respectful. We encourage passion, but not hostility. Remember that we are here to share ideas, not attack individuals. When you approach the microphone, state your name and direct your question clearly. Avoid long speeches. We want to give as many young people as possible the chance to contribute. During the open exchange, we will alternate between participants to ensure fairness. If discussion becomes heated or drift off topic, we may step in to redirect. This is simply to maintain structure and respect for everyone's time.
Ultimately, our expectation is that every person here leaves feeling heard, informed, and empowered. This forum is not a debate stage. It is a platform for understanding, accountability, and collaboration between youth and leadership. We encourage everyone to participate with openness, patience, and purpose.
Thank you, and we look forward to a meaningful and engaging conversation. At this time, please put your hands together for the Honorable Alan Chasney, Leader of the Opposition.
And with him, we also have Mr. Tommy Descat. Together, they will be giving us a brief overview of the party's philosophy, history, and major policies for national development. So put your hands together for them one more time.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to participate today. I got very excited at two words today: democracy and empowerment. And I can say to you that whatever I learned before, I studied political science, I did economics, I've worked with government as a planning officer for 3 years, I worked as director of tourism for another 3 years, I've been the Minister of Tourism, I've obviously been the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance. I have learned more about democracy and what it is to govern a country, the governance of a country, rather than govern, in this last 4.5 years than I have in my entire life. Okay? Hard to believe. But that opportunity is because of perspective. And all of a sudden, I started realizing the power of words. That when we read our Constitution or read any legal document, you have to take your time and understand the meaning of every little word. You know, 2 words that's very interesting: shall and may. When we're reading a legal document, we don't really pick up that there's a big difference between those 2 words. But there is. May means that you're giving the discretionary decision to whoever the power is. Shall means there's no discretionary. You must do it. Little words, big difference in meaning. So the first part of the presentation is really a little bit of a history of United Workers' Party. And United Workers' Party actually is a coalition that came together in 1964. A lot of persons may not know or not have remembered that the founder of United Workers' Party was Sir John. And Sir John actually started with the Labour Party. That's who he was with. And the seat that he had was the 2 Micus, Micu North, Micu South, Dennery North and Dennery South. And Sir John's motivation in politics in those days was to fight what we call indentured workers. If you go back to the 50s and the 40s, persons were living in abject poverty, physically. the conditions of what they were living in. But even more importantly, mentally, that they were working as indentured workers on, most of them, on sugarcane estates. And it's difficult for us to really appreciate sometimes what that must have been like. But that is what motivated Sir John. The fact that people were given a home and had no say. When you worked on a farm, an estate, you were given a home, but you needed permission to leave that estate to go to another estate. Think of that. How well you worked depended on how big of a house you got, but most of the houses never had washroom facilities. The idea that as a citizen of this country in those days, that you could demand health care, that you could demand better education, that you could demand better housing, was just an impossible dream for many people. That is what motivated Sir John. And that's why he started what's called the Great Strikes. You had Roseau, you had Cul-de-sac, and you had the Valley that went and had strikes against the sugarcane owners. And the one area that held out was the Valley. And because of that success of the strike, things started to change. And that was as late as 1955 in the 60s. Sir John, after succeeding in breaking the sugarcane estates, was working with the Labour Party, and he grew very frustrated that after they had accomplished this great feat, he didn't see that it was being translated on the ground to the people. And in 1964, he joined with what was called the PPP. Henry Giraudy, Mallet were some of the persons that came in, Sinclair Daniel, because that was the other political party. Because he realized, as when he broke away from the Labour Party, that three parties would not make it. So he formed a coalition with them. And he brought with him the Bousquet brothers from the Labour Party. And in 1964, over Easter, they created and established United Workers' Party. And that coalition lasted until 1997. Because when that coalition came together, it was agreed that Sir John was always going to be the political leader. It was agreed that George Mallet was always going to be the deputy political leader. It was agreed that Henry Giraudy was always going to be the chairman. And it was agreed that Sinclair Daniel was always going to be the Speaker of the House. That coalition was so successful that they stayed in government all the way until 1997, with one break in between 1979 and 1981. That was it. And he also brought St. Lucia to its independence. United Workers' Party has always been one of a big heart, but also its economics are driven by work ethic. They don't believe in handouts. The party has always believed in a hand up. It's always believed in equitable distribution of its resources. It's always believed in democracy and the rule of law. And every time that Sir John and the United Workers' Party have attempted to do something different for the country, housing, Sans Souci, entrepot, I mean, I can go throughout the length and breadth of this island and point to all the projects the United Workers' Party was involved in. A simple one, the dam. When he wanted to build the dam, you know what the cry was? Dam the dam. When he wanted to build the Millennium Highway, they said he suffered from tunnel vision. When he was building the causeway in Gros Islet, look what it is today. People criticize United Workers' Party heavily. But I would say to you that the area of development that I'm very proud of and watching United Workers' Party was certainly the development of the rural areas, feeder roads, water, electricity, schools. Imagine living in the South, limited primary schools, and if you want to go to secondary school, you either had to agree to commute up north to the 2 schools that they had up here, or leave the South and come and live with your family friends or other family members up here, and you only get to go back home for holidays. That's the sacrifice that the South had to make in order to see progress. But the real transformative project in the history of United Workers' Party was bananas. So it was when, after Sir John fought the sugarcane estates and broke that coalition, he then came, and what he did is he took lands and gave it to the people. And what was created was called model farms. So farmers were given 5-acre lots. But what government gave is government built the feeder roads. Government built the irrigation systems for them. Government created a company called Winban. Winban was a research company based in Roseau. Government provided Winera, which is the boxing plant. Government created a company called Winfresh that was responsible for all the marketing of our bananas. So he didn't just give people land, he facilitated the growth. And hence the name was developed, Green Gold. Why? Because you had thousands of banana farmers. The amount of money they required to be able to invest was minimized. What they were putting in was their effort. They had to literally take care of the banana trees, cut the bananas, box them. And the days, you guys probably won't remember that, the days of all the cars, the trucks, lined up all the way down the Latok, coming down. And all of us solutions knew what banana days were. And every truck represented money to the communities. And it was the money that they earned from the bananas, that extra money, that helped now further develop the South. So a lot of the concrete homes that you see in the South, those were from banana revenues. And I remember having that discussion with Sir John and saying, Sir John, is the banana industry a social good? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I understand that we are distributing money, but is it viable? And we got to find out the answer to that question. Because in typical form, the opposition fought the banana farmers, motivated the banana farmers to say that the money that government was taking from them to pay for the feeder roads, to pay for the water irrigation, to pay for the fertilizer, to pay for all the marketing, shouldn't be going to government, it should be going to them. And in 1997, the famous election is when St. Lucia saw a massive transition, where the government handed over the banana industry to the banana farmers, but what they did is they pulled all of the support. And it collapsed. And it had to collapse. But the fact is that Sir John understood that these lands were not being utilized. The best way to distribute money to people, make them work for it. You go and grow your bananas, you make your money. Now, one of the sad realities that happened post-1997 is when the industry started becoming more difficult, those persons who were given the 5 acres of land now started selling it. And you now had individuals buying small plots of land, and those persons who own their own land, were working their own farm, now we're working back for somebody again. And unfortunately, St. Lucia has not been able to find an industry to replace the success of distribution of income as bananas does. And that's why agriculture is so important, because it generates revenue in people's pocket to complement their other salaries. So United Workers' Party, when you look out the length and the breadth, Honora International Airport, the dam, the highways, the roads into the south, the road to Soufriere, all the major schools in this country, the hospitals in this country, United Workers' Party. And the criticism of Sir John and United Workers' Party has always been our focus on infrastructure. But here, let me explain to you a little bit about infrastructure. And I think that Sir John understood this very well. The story he told me was, he said, Alan, there's 2 types of investments we can make in a country. We can make an investment in a box, or we can make an investment in a ball. And the difference is when you invest in a box, it doesn't move. So a hospital, a school, doesn't generate revenue immediately. Hospitals and schools generate revenue long term. Because if you improve the education of people, that's an economic good. If you improve the health of your citizens and make them more productive, that's an economic good. But it doesn't happen immediately. Whereas when you invest in a hotel, or you invest in a call center, or you invest on a farm, the economic activity is immediate. And when you invest in a circle and it starts rolling, it starts generating more economic activity for everyone. So there's a clear distinction between the Labour Party and United Workers' Party. That distinction is that we believe in hand up, not hand out. We believe in improving the capacity of the country. So I want you to think for a moment, a glass, and I fill it with water, right to the top. Can I put any more water in that glass? See, that glass represents the capacity of the country. That glass represents the number of hospitals we have. That glass represents the number of hotel rooms we have. It represents how many farms that we have. It represents how many roads that we have. Once you've gotten to where you're maximizing, so let's think for a moment. Driving from Castries to Gros Islet. How painful of a process is that? You can't bring any more cars. So there's a constraint to the growth of the country because of the capacity of the country. And that capacity is represented in the glass. So the only way that that glass can end up holding more water is you got to build a bigger glass. So if we want to grow tourism, we already know that the airport that we have is too small. We already know that the highway that we have from Hunora up north can't cope with any more traffic. We can't produce any more water. We're struggling to be able to have a workforce to meet the needs of the industry. And the same thing applies for call centers. The same thing applies for your entrepreneurship. If you want to open up a business and there isn't the ability for new customers, if the only way you're going to succeed is to steal customers from someone else, that is the fastest way to failure. What United Workers' Party believes, build a bigger capacity. And the question is, do we have more space to build? So I did a small analysis. Because we use the word potential. But if you can't measure something, how do you know if you've reached your potential? I think most people would admit that St. Lucia hasn't achieved its potential. But how far away we are from reaching our potential. The one constraint that we have is land. There are over 250,000 St. Lucians living outside of St. Lucia. There are other persons from the OECS and CARICOM, and there are other persons in the world. If there's enough jobs, we can get more people. If we run out of money in our banks here, and we have good projects to invest in, there's billions and billions of dollars of money available in the world to invest in St. Lucia. What we cannot produce any more of is land. And when you take our land and you look at it from an environmental perspective, protecting our watersheds, housing, recreational facilities, you put those things aside, the remaining amount of land has to become more productive. So how do we know? So if you take the GDP of your country and you divide it by the number of square miles. So St. Lucia's GDP is about 2.5 billion US dollars, and our square miles is 238 square miles. So you're talking about just under $10 million per square mile of productivity. Aruba, with 110 square miles, 77 square miles and 110,000 people, they have an output of $40 million per square mile. We're at 10. Barbados has 30 million. Cayman Islands, $110 million output per square mile. Nassau, not Bahamas, the island of Nassau, $150 million. And here's the one that everybody doesn't want to make the comparison to. Singapore. We think of Singapore as being this massive success story, this big country. It's the same size as St. Lucia. It is exactly the same size as St. Lucia. And their output per square mile, are you ready for this? Is $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. It means that 1.5 square miles in Singapore has more economic output than the whole of St. Lucia. So I would say to you, we're not even close. So if we want to get to Aruba at $40,000 per output per square mile, that means our GDP would be $10 billion, not $2.5 billion. On a $10 billion budget, we're going to be able to run surpluses. We're going to have enough money for healthcare. We're going to have enough money for education. We're going to have enough money for infrastructure. And we can go through a tremendous amount of reforms in our country by simply growing our GDP. We are not even coming close. All we're doing is we're managing cash flow. We're not setting monies aside. We're not seeing the kind of growth and investment in the infrastructure that we ought to. That is the fundamental difference between United Workers' Party and the Labour Party. We believe in the capacity of the country, which is its workforce, its land, and the application of its investment. So once you know what it is, make sure that wherever you are investing now in the country, it's getting the best possible returns. Take a simple thing. Squatting. Squatting is happening because the government is not moving fast enough to create housing developments for people. When they now go and squat on land, so I'm not picking on the Prime Minister, but it's easier for everybody to understand. In Marshall, there's a place called the Boulevard. That's private land. And it's remained private land. And everybody there is squatting. And the laws in St. Lucia say that the minimum size land that somebody's supposed to have is 5,000 square feet. I want you to think for a moment. How would you generate 5,000 square feet for each of the persons that are there? So automatically, more than half of the people would have to be displaced if you were to come even close to that. So the first thing the government would have to do is to buy the land. Government would have to go in and subdivide the land, put the infrastructure in, water, sewage, electricity, because that's what's going to be planning department requires. I don't think you need to be a genius to know that probably putting up apartments in that area might go a whole lot, way further. But you see, people want change, but they don't want the change to impact them. So that's why what government needs to do is put together a national plan. That's my last piece on the United Workers' Party. Sir John left us in 2006. Tommy and I know the plan very, very well. It's called the Quadrant Economic Plan. And it said in order for St. Lucia to reach its potential, we have to develop the whole of St. Lucia. So let's start identifying where the new housing developments are going to go. So that's where the new roads are going to go. That's where the new schools are going to go. That's where the new healthcare centers are going to go. So once you start building roads, you start building schools, you start building healthcare centers, and all the things, the recreation facilities, and you now make lots available for people to buy, that's where they're going to migrate to. We cannot continue to be reactive to our development. We must take control of our future. And the United Workers' Party is the only political party, I say that unabashedly, without any apologies, is the only political party that's ever presented a long-term plan for St. Lucia. And the work that we were doing in 2016 was the continuation of that foundation plan, the Quadrant Economic Plan. If St. Lucia is going to reach its full potential, the South must be developed. It is very clear for everybody to see. You need a proper highway like there is in Barbados, the ABC Highway, or the highways that Jamaica is putting, or highways you see around the world. We need a new highway that's going to go from Vieux Fort all the way down the East Coast, connecting to Moshi, with arteries, the Alain Bousquet Highway, La Charrette, connecting into the city. Moving the container park out of town and putting it in the cul-de-sac. and now having a major highway from Dennery with a tunnel coming through the cul-de-sac. So when all of a sudden now your containers come, there's a new highway that we invested in to go to Soufriere. There's a highway now that will take you to the East Coast, and when you get to the East Coast, all of that commercial traffic can go either south or can go north. Plus now you have the opportunity of opening up all the land on the East Coast and designing your communities for residential areas, designing your communities for industrial areas, but you must take a long-term approach to the development of our country. So I'm going to stop at that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chasney. We now open the floor for questions from our attendees.
Raise your hand and we will call on you as we see you. And come to the mic so you can ask your question. Gentle reminder, we are respectful with all of our questions. The goal is to learn and be educated. We are not attacking, nor are we being aggressive.
Good morning. My name is Dequan Charles, and my question is in regards to the Quadrant Economic Plan. How realistic would it be, or what would you be able to achieve in the span of 4 to 5 years so that you could basically say to the youth, okay, we will be able to do this in 4 to 5 years, and if we're re-elected, we can do this in another 4 to 5 years. So is there any planning in regards to if you were to be elected, what would be completed in those 4 to 5 years?
That's a great question. So there's very little that you can do in 4 to 5 years. Realistically, right? You can do some things. So when we came in 2016, let's just take that as an example. The then previous Prime Minister had said something had gone wrong. I don't know if you heard that statement. And what he was making a reference to was the country was borrowing money to pay for salaries and borrowing money to pay debt. So when they were going to the institutions to borrow money, it was only to pay salaries and to pay debt. All of the major financial institutions in the world know that can't work. So just think of in your own household. If you take the income that you're earning, you take the rent that you're paying, you pay the money that you pay for food and for transportation, and every month that you're going to be short money. And you're going to go borrow money from your family, you borrow money from your neighbors, you borrow money from, what's the name of the people that lent the short-term money? I can't remember, very expensive. Not the treasury bills, for locals when they want to go and borrow some money, fast cash, okay? At some point it catches up with you, right? Unless you change your lifestyle. And there's a couple of options you have. You can say, okay, I need to get another job. So I need to bring some income in. Or I need to cut back on my expenses. Or I need to get another job and also cut back on my expenses. But borrowing money to pay for debt is not sustainable. It just can't continue to happen. And so what happened to the country is all the financial institutions around the world realized that St. Lucia was going to crash. And so the money that they were lending them was called treasury bills. Monies that they can get for 90 days, for 180 days, or for 1 year. And the problem with treasury bills is the interest rate tends to be a little bit higher. And every time you turn over a treasury bill, there are administrative fees. So it makes the interest rate even higher than it was. So when I came in 2016, unemployment was 25%. Youth unemployment was 44%. People were losing their homes because there was not enough money in circulation. They had introduced the VAT, and the VAT took away money from people. Just think of it, that you own a little barbershop, or a salon, or a small business, and 15% VAT comes on and you have to pay 15% VAT on your rent. So what happened? Persons closed down the shop, the extra people they had working for them, they sent them home, and they worked out of their home. Because they couldn't make ends meet. Couldn't. And so we had to instill confidence back into the country and the economy. We lowered the VAT rate. All the critics, the Labour Party people said, oh, it's impossible. Can't do that. The IMF and the World Bank criticized me. I sat with them. I said, okay, I will increase the gas tax and we increase the airport tax. Why the gas tax? It's because we were charging license fees for vehicles. So it means as a young person, you invested in a truck. If you're not working, even if you're not working, you're still paying the license fee every day. Whereas with gas tax, you only pay the fee if the truck is working. And we allow that monies to be set aside towards the development of our roads. The airport tax, we set it aside. So what happened? They said that the revenue for government would have dropped by $60 million. It dropped by 15. And within 18 months, we were earning the same amount of money with 15% VAT as we were with 12.5% VAT. So mathematically, the only way that that's possible is more people were spending. There was more money in circulation. They said if I increase the airport tax, the tourism would collapse. Tourism grew by 11%. Because not even the IMF understood tourists don't buy an airline ticket to come to St. Lucia. They buy a package for 7 days. So when you add $75 on a person who is staying for 7 days, it's $10 a day. 2 cups of coffee in the hotels. It made no difference. But that was money now that the state was generating to fund our capital investment program. And very importantly for you here, is we were embarked on a program to re-engineer the civil service. Doc is here. How many hours we spent in the cabinet room, Doc? 50, 60 people in that hot room, discussing healthcare insurance, discussing what we're going to do with healthcare. And there was a fundamental problem with healthcare. There was a plan for healthcare, but it was not being implemented. So when they decided to build OKEU, it was under the assumption that the healthcare facilities in the communities were going to be expanded. So people are being identified with an illness by their doctor. They're getting the support from their healthcare facility. They only go to OKEU for surgery and for operational procedures. And the moment that they can get out, they send them back home because there's only 120 beds. But when you have a situation like right now, where not even the healthcare facilities are operating, and the hospital now, the emergency ward, is not just a general emergency. Anything that goes wrong with anybody in the Castries Basin right now, they all head to OKEU. And it's not built for that. And so that's why the plan is so important. The Quadrant Economic Plan is a plan that would have taken, in my estimation, 40 years. But why is it necessary? It's necessary because as you start getting monies, you start prioritizing what's the most important part of the plan. What are the first steps? And you build on it. It would be great. It would be the most amazing thing if both political parties could agree on a national plan for St. Lucia. That would be the ideal situation. I'm not so sure it's going to happen. And what's the difference is how we manage our resources and the priorities we make. But what we want to do as a country, we're going to do it. You cannot have a political party that when they're in opposition, that tourism is the worst thing that ever happened. And when they get into government, now it's the savior. You send confusing messages. With 180,000 people and where we are located, not everything is available to us. The cost of electricity is 40 cents a kilowatt hour. While we may think our wage rates are high in St. Lucia, are too low in St. Lucia, in comparison to Mexico, in comparison to the Dominican Republic, we're high. That doesn't mean that we can't create businesses to make it higher, but we have to be very selective of what sectors we're going to go in that can afford to pay the higher wages. It's not every sector. The infrastructure you're going to put in has to be supportive of where you want to go. So the Quadrant Economic Plan says, first of all, what's your road network system going to look like? Secondly, where's your water going to come from? How are you going to manage your distribution of your electricity? All from an infrastructure perspective. And then the big one is village tourism. All of these small villages which become the nucleus for tourism development in our communities. So, have most of you been to Sandals or some of the bigger hotels? I want you to think of it for a moment. Imagine if Sandals was owned by the people of St. Lucia. So somebody ran the security, a separate company. Somebody ran the beach facilities. All the different restaurants were owned by different St. Lucians. And every 20 rooms were owned by somebody different. Think of it for a moment. Right? But how are you going to make the decisions collectively to benefit everyone? Who's going to run the landscaping? Who's going to make sure the security is working to the best interest of everyone? That's what village tourism is. Village tourism is saying, can we create a center, an epic center, for people to come together? Restaurants, bars, nightclubs. Airbnbs are all owned individually. Government's role is to make sure that the roads are there. Government's role is to make sure that the security is there. And I'm not pushing tourism as the only thing. Call centers. A call center does not have to be always in Castries. When we came in 2016, all the call centers were up north. We pushed to bring Ojo Labs to the south and incentivize them through the NAP program to go into the south. We got ITEL BPO to go into the south. Why? It's unfair to those young people having to commute up north. But more importantly, by having them in the south, not spending as much money on transportation, not spending as much money on accommodation, it put more money in their pocket. More money that they could save and now invest back in their overall communities. So the goal is, from an infrastructure perspective, what the Quadrant Economic Plan is, and then the other part that's layered on top of it, and Tommy can speak about that, is in terms of the finances and the social development, and Sir Arthur Lewis and our school system is critical to that.
Cooperation, non-ideal what happens. Because I do think that at some point we're going to have to come together and find a solution for the security issue, separating the different parts of the plan of way of planning. So I want to understand why you think that is that cooperation cannot happen.
I think that the ideological differences between the two parties have become very, very different. So let's just look at this election. I am very, very worried for St. Lucia. Because what I see is I see a political party that wants us to become a one-party state. What's a one-party state? A one-party state is where the government is the party and the party is the government. And it goes back to that word I spoke about, democracy, and our Constitution, and what is more important and what's more relevant in that. Let's just take the last week. We had an opening ceremony for St. Jude's, where the government said that they're going to give us a building and try to convince everybody that the building is the first step towards the hospital. You had a new building, so that can't be the truth. But here's the worrisome part, and what I'm talking about. How much money was spent on that ceremony? And it was taxpayers' money. And that you had ministers wearing red, and you had supporters in red. Just on Thursday, you had a ceremony for making public servants permanent. I'm not so sure that everybody really understands and appreciates what an anomaly that was. What generally happens is if somebody gets a promotion in the public service, or somebody's being made permanent, a letter is written to them by the Public Service Commission. It's private. How much money was spent? And ministers showed up in red shirts. when we're going through this campaign. One minister said there was $240 million that was earned under CIP. Richard Frederick, for this year. And we see monies being spent all over the place under the guise that it's government. This is what parties like that do, where the lines between what is party and what is government becomes blurred. So let's use the example: Cuba, Venezuela, Russia. The party is the government is the party. And all of a sudden, in order to be able to get any benefits from the government, you must be a member of the party. That's why I said to you, I was very happy to hear the word democracy. So let's look at something that's also happened. And we say nothing. Civil society has said nothing. Citizens have said nothing. When a poster is pulled down or a billboard is ripped off, that's not an attack on my party. That's an attack on your democracy. Your right of choice. So a political party does TV ads, does radio interviews, and puts up stuff to promote what? Their ideology, their ideas, to give you a choice. And when that material is attacked and torn down, and it's almost like one political party has the exclusive right to campaign, and it's one exclusive right to be able to say what they have to say, that's what happens. So a more direct question, answer to your question, is in 4.5 years, I've spoken to the Prime Minister once. Once. As leader of the opposition. And the leader of the opposition is totally different from being the political leader of a party. Leader of the opposition is a recognized position within government. I'm invited to nothing. Civil society, terrified to invite me to a meeting as a leader of the opposition. I can say to you today, Hotels Association in 5 years have never once invited me to a meeting as a leader of the opposition. I only got invited because of pressure to the Chamber of Commerce 3 weeks ago. So when we see our democracy being diminished to this extent, and a party is so committed to destroying who the opposition is or the legacy of the opposition is, we're in trouble. How are we going to be able to sit down and resolve those problems moving forward when that environment is not created? The only persons that can make a change are the citizens of the country. Are they going to stand for what is right? Is it right that a minister of government goes on a radio show or TV show and attacks women? Is it right that he says that he has documents from the police and using against the citizens of the country? Is it right that the CIP program is running? Does anybody know how many passports were given? There's a law that says you shall, remember that famous word, shall, produce an annual auditor report. Not happened. What's the consequence? The economic fund is where the CIP money goes to. Not once in 5 years was a report done. The escrow account on CIP, nobody knows. How is it that a government can make a decision to give away our seaport? Never put out to bid. And when I broke the news in Parliament that they leased it for $1 a year for 40 years, I said I was a liar. Think of it, that the leader of the opposition had to find a document in order to hold them accountable. A document that you should have. A report that they should have produced a long time ago. NLA. I'm still not sure. Are young people upset? The money to sponsor scholarships, the money to pay for sporting programs in this country has always come from the NLA, the National Lottery Association. The government went and allowed NLA to borrow $110 million. NLA is not equipped to issue contracts. That loan now is going to cost $1 million a month for 15 years. $12 million a year that's been taken away from your programs. Where's the outrage? Can anyone here, anybody in St. Lucia, tell me what was the money spent on? $110 million. What was it spent on? Who were the contractors? Where is the report and the accountability of the money. The NLA is supposed to produce an annual audit report, shall produce a report. Nothing. But you see, if we don't demand better, if we're not going to stand up for our own democratic rights and understand what our Constitution says, Constitution was created to protect you. Because they know that government is powerful. So the Constitution puts in guardrails to prevent the government from using those resources against you. And when we don't stand for those things, and we allow them to just be diminished, all of a sudden now the opportunity for a political party to become the government and the government to become the political party starts becoming more of a reality. And certainly every time that we have attempted to have any kinds of conversation with the Labour Party, deaf ears. Because what I hear is, you lose. 15-2. But the reality is that 42% of St. Lucians voted for United Workers' Party. 42%. In fact, you're probably going to be shocked to hear this. More people voted for us in 2021 than they voted for the Labour Party in 2016. Yet I got 2 seats. They had 6. 37,800 people voted for United Workers' Party. How is it that the Prime Minister and their government can stand in Parliament and said, you lose, you don't have a right? What happens to all, it's not winner take all. We still have representative government. And more importantly, it's about our institutions working for us. So the day that we can get a stronger civil society, the day that we can get more active citizenry that are going to stand up and protect your Constitution and your rights, that will create the opportunity for the 2 political parties to come together. But if we're just going to sit in silence and fear, then we're going to acquiesce that democratic right that we have. No one should infringe on your rights. No one. And that should be a hard, fast rule. The moment we don't do that, it overempowers one group to believe that they have the moral authority to govern the country as one party state.
Mr. Glasgow, you may go ahead.
Okay. This is mine? Okay. We're on? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Honorable Anne Chastanet, Mr. Descott. Good to see you. So I wanted to take a look at one of your quotes here. And correct me if I misrepresented it. You said, if the only way to get customers is to steal from others or someone else, that business is going to fail. You said that? Perfect. So, this leads me to my second question. At Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, there is a rule that states you cannot be a member of 3 student organizations. And there's a rule that says that you cannot be a member of 2 student organizations in a specific block. So if you wanted to join Fitness Club and Debate Society, that's completely not allowed. I believe that violates the freedom of association in our Constitution. So, my question to you is, do you think it's fair for someone at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College to be restricted from participating in 3 student organizations at SALCC?
It's a very simple answer. The answer is, I support your position. Absolutely not. And then particularly when the different clubs are completely unrelated.
Thank you, sir.
So, good morning. I'd like to come back to general politics, Sir. My first question is directed to you, Mr. Chastanet. As the leader of the opposition, one of your responsibilities is to oversee the Public Accounts Commission, correct? I want to know what's going on with that matter. And secondly, I want to know, between either one of you, whoever wants to answer, the plan to increase our GDP. You compared the GDP per square foot, right? Square, yeah. So the islands that you mentioned, they're predominantly flatland, and as you know, flatland is conducive for economic activity, whereas St. Lucia is primarily mountainous. So what do you think our capacity truly is for development, and how did that tie into the development, to the increase in our GDP when looking at our constraints in land?
Thank you. Very quickly on the Public Service Commission, a lot of people misunderstood, including myself. That's what, public accounts, sorry. Including myself. And that's why I said to you, I learned so much. So most of us believe the Public Accounts Committee is to be able to hold the ministers accountable. But it's not. A Public Accounts Committee meets once the Auditor General does a report. So it's the audited report that generates the meeting. And the purpose of the committee is to review how the Auditor General did and whether they did a good job, and what the recommendations are. And if there were shortfalls as to what is going to be done to correct them. But everybody's scared. Everything that is about accountability in this country, we all run away from it. So I can be the chairman, which I am, but if I call a meeting, the majority of the members are in government. No coalition. I have gotten and met with the Auditor General, and I was trying to pick a report, at least to start the process of good governance in our country. All right? So the leader of the opposition is supposed to have access to information on a regular basis in order that he or she can hold the government officials accountable. Not so much the ministers. We have an Auditor General, we have a DPP, and permanent secretaries. These are all protected positions by the Constitution. You can't fire a permanent secretary. You can move a permanent secretary, but you can't fire them. You can't fire the Auditor General. You can't fire the DPP. But when they're not doing their job, you have to go, why? You're protected. So when there are things that are falling, when we see that reports are not being done, who's going to hold them accountable? So the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia says, in the Act, you shall produce a report. But what it doesn't say is what happens afterwards if you don't do it. And that's one of the changes we want to bring. We're going to say that all of the statutory bodies, if in fact that you have not met your legal requirement of producing a report, your government subventions will stop until you do so. Can't be business as usual. Because it's your report. And there has to be an independent entity that can enforce those rules. And that's the maturing of our democracy that I've witnessed that needs to take place. The other question was the growth of GDP. St. Lucia has mountains. It just means that the land that we have, that we can use, it has to be much more productive. I'm going to use tourism as an example, not because I'm here to promote tourism. Is that fair enough? Is that okay? So let's just look at the example. So it's about the value of the land and what that land should be producing. So if you take Sandals Grant on the Rodney Bay Bay, and you take the Rex Properties that was also on the Rodney Bay Bay. Sandals Grant is hiring 2.5 people per room and runs a 90% occupancy. And I can see how much taxes they're paying. So hotels do pay taxes. Compare it to the Rex on the same beach. They're hiring 0.8 people per room. They're running a 50% occupancy, and the rate that they're getting is 1/5 of what Sandals is getting. So the output of that land at Rex compared to the output of the land at Sandals, tenfold. So it tells you that the hotel that you had there had to be broken down because it was not the best use of a valuable piece of land. This is where the planning has to come in, because critical pieces of land must produce more than they currently are in order for us to succeed. The great thing with tourism does not displace farms. Where you can build a hotel isn't necessarily where a farm is going to be. It doesn't displace the call centers. It doesn't displace financial services. But what it does, or manufacturing, What it does, the more hotel rooms that we have, the more the farmers have to sell. The more the manufacturers have to sell. The more jobs that are being created for St. Lucians and support services. Aruba, which is 70 square miles, has 15,000 hotel rooms. St. Lucia has 5. Aruba doesn't have agriculture. Aruba doesn't have manufacturing. Aruba has very limited financial services. So you have to ask yourself the question, okay, if St. Lucia had 15,000 rooms, can we take another 10,000 rooms? Easy. But it's also going to impact agriculture. It's going to impact manufacturing. It's going to impact our economy. But the question is, what's the constraints? The first constraint is going to be the airport. You can't handle a tripling of the size of tourism with the airport that we have. You can't handle it with the road network that we have and the water supplies we have and the training of our personnel. What is going to produce the most output per acre are the industries that we have to go after. Once we know what the industry is to make sure the physical infrastructure, educational infrastructure, and the financial infrastructure are there to support, to make it competitive. The reason why bananas are gone today is we're not competitive. Costa Rica, Guatemala, Colombia, go down the list. One farm in those countries is producing more bananas than the whole of St. Lucia. And when you look at what the cost of producing a banana is in St. Lucia, shipping it to the UK, the only way that we were successful is when the market was protected. That's why when we were in government, what we were trying to do is create what we call our gourmet banana. We can't produce any more, but can we get a higher price for our banana? It is in getting involved in industries in which we have a competitive advantage. Financial services. We were going to lose it because of the blacklisting with the Europeans. It's my government that came up with an initiative to create what's called a territorial tax structure that allows our IBCs, international business corporations, and other industries to thrive and gave us an advantage. We speak of policy space. Look at the world, where the world is going. We know that to succeed, we have to sell overseas. We don't have a big enough population here to be able to generate a $10 billion GDP. We have to sell something outside. What is it we're going to sell? Music. But for the music to be successful, we have to copyright it. And while I have zero problems, and I live in a democratic society, I supported that Kaisos during Carnival want to go after politicians, there's no political song that has any market value past Carnival. As ridiculous as it sounds, Hot, 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 Arrow, International, Who Let the Dogs Out? We have to produce music that the rest of the world wants, and that's why we're so supportive of Dennery Segment. Because there's 2 wins with Dennery Segment. One win is you're promoting a local industry. Okay? The second one is your sound, which becomes ever associated with St. Lucia. Zouk, Kassav, associated with the French Antilles. Reggae, with Jamaica. The steel pan, with Trinidad. Dennery Segment has that same opportunity. But what we need to do is to make sure that the studios that they're working out of are better. What we need to do is to make sure that they can align themselves with international artists. Because by having a car, a BMW, a Rolls Royce in your video, you're now segueing into that market. When you're playing music with other international artists, you're getting the benefit of their exposure. We have to do a better job of promoting that industry. The IT sector, coding. I mean, what brought me to tears was when we had Ojo Labs here, and in the first 6 months, and Ojo has the best engineers working out of Texas, Austin, Texas. PhDs. And a young St. Lucian guy working there came up with an amendment to the program that they had that improved the productivity of what they're doing by 30%. A St. Lucian. Now, What we want to do is to make sure that he and many others after him have the capacity to copyright that idea. Because it's when you're selling to millions of people and to billions of people, when we become successful. We, 180,000 people, cannot isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. And the job of the government is to make you as competitive as everybody else in the rest of the world. And that's why I'm so excited about what we're going to be doing with Sir Arthur. Sir Arthur is not just about an institution after high school. We want Sir Arthur to be an institution for your life. You get a job in a hotel, you get a job in a bank, you get a job in retail, you start off at the low end. You want to become a supervisor, you can come back to Sir Arthur to get your training for free. After you become a supervisor, you want to become a manager, there's skills and certification you need to get, you can come back to Sir Arthur and continue to get that. It's an institution for life. We have to add value in our workforce, and that is education. So even with Sir Arthur, the first 2 years of university can be done here. Open up many more options for you to be able to do online. But the online is providing you with a facility, a place that has proper internet, because you know we can't rely on what's going on out there right now at your homes. It's horrible what's going on. So we want to put a stable place you can come to, have proper internet connections, whiteboards, teachers to facilitate and help you in what you're doing. But more importantly, the campus is not going to be just here. We have to have multiple locations of campuses around the island. So we call them WeWork stations. Not only for your continuing education, but if you get a job working with an international company, you don't have to stay in your home. There's a place you can go to, and it must be open 24/7. Because the rest of the world is not sleeping. There's always somewhere in the world that people are awake. And none of us have the luxury of working between the hours of 8 and 4. Those days are gone. We have to adjust ourselves to where we can make the money and adjust our lifestyles accordingly. And that's what the responsibility of the government is. And the last thing I want to share with you, because it's very, very important, because I know we have to close. When you read the SOS program for United Workers' Party, and one of the persons said it this morning, young people must have, the youth must have, a seat at the table. So a commitment we've made is every single statutory body, including the town councils, must have a young person represented there. But those are not just words. The Youth Council, we must institutionalize the Youth Council and the support that I try to do for civil society, the business community. How do you raise money so they can hire a lawyer? How can they raise money so they can hire an economist? Because you cannot participate in the policy of government if you're not properly prepared. So you must have your own resources to have economists, lawyers, sociologists helping you to understand what that policy is. But it can no longer be where a government can sign a deal with GPH for 40 years. So think of it. You're 20 years old today. You'll be 60 years old when we get back our port. And what do you know? What respect were you shown to understand that 400 million US dollars, over $1 billion EC dollars, was given away? And we know nothing. Where's your CIP money going? Where's your NLA money going? How much money has been spent on the halls of justice? Is it right? Does it make sense to you that we would have spent $400 million on St. Jude's Hospital, an 80-year-old building? Successive governments spent $140 million by 2016. My government did a report that said that property, that building cannot ever be made into a proper hospital. The hallways are too narrow, the ceilings are too low, and there's major electrical and structural problems. The amount of money, now we know, $300 million was spent, and they still cannot open it. Who is going to be accountable for that? That's your money. Think of what $300 million would have done for the young people in this country, in creating a world-class training institution, in building homes, in your own communities, in grant monies to support your dreams. Gone. That's why we feel it's so important to give you a space at the table. But that space is also going to come with training. You must be trained in governance. Because sitting on a board comes with responsibility. You must ask the right questions. You must not allow people to do the things that they want to get away with. And we'll teach you how to do that, how to provide proper governance. And this training will not only help you with that, but will help you in life and with your own businesses. But we need to rebuild back the democracy in this country. It's going to start with you, the young people. That's our commitment to you. And this institution will be a training. When I hear people talk about, oh, Chasney wants to close it down. I was there for 5 years. Did I close down Sir Arthur? No, I was asking for accountability. Are we spending our money in the right areas? Are we spending our money in the best way? Why is it that the buildings were being deteriorated? Why were we not making investments in those areas? Because government subvention was too small. 15 million. In order to have made Sir Arthur viable, we had to increase the subvention to 30 million and increase your tuition fees to $6,000. That's the change. Strengthen the institution, have it focus on sectors that are going to help you in your career and be with you forever and help empower you both from democracy, but more importantly, empower you economically. When you have your own money, you have your own home, your self-esteem is great, our country is going to perform a lot better. United Workers' Party, that's what we want. We want accountability. We want to give people resources to make their lives better. We don't want to make you dependent on government. So thank you. If I can, I'd like maybe Mr. Descartes to maybe talk a little bit about the financial and economic and social part of the Quadrant Economic Plan, if he can, after the question.
Okay, as we near close, we have Mr. Dequan Charles, who will be asking a question.
I have a question from an online listener that is currently studying abroad. They wanted to know what is your plan to offer assistance, because currently some students that are studying in other countries, they're struggling financially. So they wanted to know if your organization have any plans to offer assistance.
I'm going to let Tommy answer, but I'm going to say really quickly. How many scholarships do we give, island scholarships do we give a year? Anybody know? Yeah. Yeah, we have a program where we give a scholarship to our island scholar.
Two.
One.
Two, sometimes two.
When they come very close.
Yeah, sometimes. I don't know.
One. Do you know that if you speak French, that you can get a free university degree anywhere in France? Any university? Martinique, Guadeloupe, or France? Simply by speaking French. That's the only requirement. We try to work with friendly governments, Mexicans, Moroccans, the Taiwanese have been amazing, right? But we need to grow that program. But that's why we think that the more successful way right now is online universities have become very popular and very, very good. Improve the facilities here so that more people can benefit. I would like to think that when we get to $10 billion GDP, we're going to have a very robust scholarship program where I would love to see that we're giving 100 island scholars a year. At least one scholarship to every school that we have. And maybe it should be gender neutral, males and females. But you see, we have to be committed to the economic growth to be able to do that. Because right now, I'm being absolutely honest with you, I have no idea how much money we've made off CIP. I only see what the contracts tell me, that the government has given 12,000 files. Each file is anywhere between 3 and 4 passports. So anywhere between 36,000 and 48,000 passports have been given. I don't know where the money is. No audit of the escrow account, no audit of CIP, nothing. I heard a minister say that this year alone they made $240 million. Where's that money? How is it being spent? So I think that CIP has a huge opportunity to really transform St. Lucia, but we must transform St. Lucia that it's on a sustainable, viable way. If you just spend the money in one shot, we're not going to see the greatest benefit of it. We need to create the institutions to allow more and more young people. That's why we believe in sports. 1 out of 3 young people get to go to university. 1 out of 3. So 2 out of 3 don't. Language, sports. The sports academy. The sports programs we want to do in the communities. Football, track, swimming, scholarships. Every avenue that we have to get education paid for young persons, we need to pursue with the greatest sense of urgency like we've never had before. There's lots of opportunities out there. We're just not managing our resources properly. Let me hand over to Tommy.
Thank you very much, political leader. So I'm Tommy Descott, UW candidate for Castries South, former chief economist in the government and also a country economist at the Caribbean Development Bank. And so for me, while the political leader gives the vision, the broad vision, I'm also very focused on the granular data. And I think, are there any economic students in the classroom here? Nice. So I think there are a couple of things, and as the political leader indicated, we need to grow this economy and grow it really quickly. If you look at our growth over the last couple of years, it's very volatile. And anytime we had a sort of an upshot, a swing, and it's rarely because of something that driven by construction, driven by was it Cricket World Cup? But our economy has not been able to grow sustainably, constant, what you call trend or potential GDP at a constant rate. And if we are going to achieve that sort of a development, we need sustainable, constant growth in our GDP. And so what we will characterize our GDP as very volatile and very low. So any exogenous shock, we had the COVID pandemic, and we saw that we had a dip in our GDP. But importantly, what we noticed that we were able to rebound really, really quickly. And so we have to find a way to grow this economy and make it resilient to exogenous shocks. And that's critical. I worked on Jamaica, and I always use this example. We saw what Hurricane Melissa did to Jamaica. And we live in a very dangerous environment, neighborhood essentially, because every so often you have a hurricane barreling down, and 1 or 2 countries, your entire capital stock can be destroyed in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. And we must build resilience, because if not, we are going to constantly be building back over and over again, taking 1 step forward, 3 steps back. So in terms of the development plans that the political leader has, one of the areas that I'm personally passionate about is that we need to develop a strategic infrastructure investment fund in this country. So I know the government has developed what they call a sovereign wealth fund. Now the sovereign wealth fund globally is for countries that are resource-rich, oil-rich countries that have excess resources. They run huge surpluses, and they are now going to use this, for example, Qatar and the Saudis, and they go into other countries and invest and get returns on that investment. In the case of St. Lucia, I don't know that we have these sort of huge resources that we can make these investments in. Secondly, the government has to say to its citizens, before I could take scarce resources, and from my understanding, they're using CIP resources to do that. Before you could take scarce resources and plow it into another country for whatever investment and whatever yield on that investment, you must say to your constituents, to your people, that the infrastructure gaps, the deficits that you have in infrastructure, your healthcare, your roads, that has been closed, right? I can't take monies, it's like taking monies to build someone else's home and your home is in shambles. So certainly I don't think that makes any economic sense. But also, we've not been running surpluses substantially to justify investing outside of our country. And so the plan really is fiscal prudence. And I've said to a political leader over and over again, and he's agreed, we need to ensure that we have fiscal prudence in place. We must have the buffers. And even in the CIP, the World Bank over and over has said, 3 things you need to do with your CIP resources. You need to ensure that you lower your debt. Now, while debt to GDP has fallen, I will say to you, the nominal debt, the actual debt that is on our books, has been growing and has grown by almost 1 billion over the last 4 years. So, yes, your GDP is growing, but that value, and one of the things that we've discussed with the political leader is that over the next 5 years, the amortization, or how much we need to be paying down on debt that's coming due, is within the range of $800 million. We are saying that we are trying our best to borrow within that range. So essentially, you are not going to be increasing your nominal debt, but as your debt to GDP, your GDP goes up, the debt to GDP goes down. So you constrain yourself within that framework. And that's critical. Obviously, we now do focus on surpluses. You need to look at your expenditure side of things to ensure that you are getting value for money. So public expenditure reviews are very, very important. There is a lot of wastage in the public service, unfortunately. And in order to maximize that, we have to ensure that we look at where we could save as much as possible within the public. The CIP program is one that gives us a tremendous opportunity. And I've said, over the last couple of years, the CIP gave us a tremendous opportunity to restructure our economies. And that's why I'm very, very passionate about how we utilize this, because I believe it has a shelf life. It will eventually dry off, and because of the nature of it, you have to use it primarily for capital expenditure. I personally believe that. You should not be using a CIP for recurrent expenditure. And that is something that the World Bank, the IMF has said, because you need to reposition this economy. And so a strategic infrastructure investment fund, and we did some work with the World Economic Forum on that, where they started to put together a financing roadmap where you could pull in all of the multilateral agencies like the World Bank, IMF, CDB as well, to come to the table and say, here's our long-term quadrant plan. How are you going to assist us to ensure that we can achieve that? So I'm hoping that this gives a sense of where we're thinking in terms of the financing side. Poverty in St. Lucia, on the social side, poverty in St. Lucia is around 25% for the last 30 years. Despite all of the investments we've made in social development, poverty remains. That really means 1 in 4 St. Lucians is considered to be poor. And the question we need to ask is, are the social interventions that we've been given, is it enough? Is it targeting the deprivations that people have in our country? You talk about educational deprivations, access to homes, quality homes. We need to ask ourselves as a people, can we continue to live with 25% of our population being deemed poor? And so we've had this long discussion about how do we alleviate people from this thing called poverty. A strong social protection system has to be put in place. The government has tried this for a number of years now, but we now need to ensure that we give people a range of support services to lift them out of poverty. And so when we talk about giving tuition free to SAFA students, I've met a lot of young persons who said to me, yes, I have got up to secondary school. And I think any child who starts from kindergarten, makes his way up to secondary school, should be rewarded for that success and not have to hit a barrier of not being able to go off to tertiary level institutions. And therefore, I think that is a big strategy to break the cycle of poverty, because it empowers. Because there are households where a grandmother just won't be able to go back into, get trained or go back into the labor market. But the young girl who's in the house, if you ensure that she goes to school, she doesn't get pregnant while she's in school, and she goes up and get a good job, she can graduate her entire household out of poverty. And so for us, we believe firmly in investing in the future of our young people who can then lift their families out of poverty. There are a lot of other examples. For instance, we believe firmly in home ownership, rebuilding our middle class. And that the issue around this mortgage deposit guarantee scheme or guarantee facility, I think it's a powerful and transformative way of giving our young persons opportunity to generate wealth. The reality is the average young person will take perhaps 15 years to save up $40,000 or $50,000. And that's just the reality. And we want young persons to own homes earlier in their lives. And when you own a home, it alters your investment, your consumption and your investment patterns. And that means you own equity, get equity in your house a lot faster. You can now send your kids off to school, you could go into businesses, but you're not going to retire with a mortgage on your back again. So we believe, again, you could take $20 million from the CIP and unlock almost $400 million in credit that is in the banking sector. Because one of the fun, now people will ask what's the difference between a 100% financing and this, what we offer? The interest rate differential, the risk premium that the banks put on there for 100% financing could far outstrips the $30,000, $40,000 we are suggesting to put up as the deposit for you on your collateral. And I believe that young persons, this is the sort of thing that is going to transform, give them a stake in this country, ensure that you have the genuine opportunities to own your homes and to build wealth in this country. Thank you.
Yes, so as we come to a close, of course, we'd like to express our thanks to the Honorable Alan Chastanet and Mr. Descartes, who I think has provided us with a wealth of information as it pertains not only to the United Workers' Party and the philosophy and history of the party, but also to their own goals for national development and where we as young people fit into that. So I think that alone in itself is cause for another round of applause. So we now invite Mr. Chastanet and Mr. Descartes to, as assisted by our assistant, of course. We're going to allow you to leave first whilst we remain back and just, reflect.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes,